From an undisclosed location high in the Hollywood Hills, it's time once again for the long shot. Come hell or high water. Tonight's episode, when the whiskey was gone, the show was over. And now please welcome the host of the long shot, Sean Conroy. The summer after I got out of college, and I say got out of because I did not graduate, I went to summer school at Iona College in my hometown of New Rochelle. And yes, there were stories from when I was a child of people saying Iona College and someone else responding, "You own a what?" in full sincerity. That did actually happen. Sort of a who's on first type situation. But one of my classmates in this summer school program was a road manager for Shane McGowan and the Pogues, or worked for them in some capacity. I think she was a road manager, or maybe she was with them on the road. And she explained to the rest of us that the way Shane would do shows was he would go on stage with a bottle of whiskey, he would start drinking the whiskey, and when the whiskey was gone, the show was over. That was how he timed his shows. So I am going to do that for this episode, not with a bottle of whiskey, but with my favorite drink from Starbucks, a Grande Black Eye, which is a coffee with 2 shots of espresso in it. That'll wake you up. Good desk. Welcome to The Long Shot. I am your host. My name is Sean Conroy. Tonight, I am alone in this pursuit. Joe is out of town. Amber is out of contact. And Jamie is just out of it. Zing. But in the interests of continuity and consistency, I'm still going to record an episode. Now, I am aware that we have heard from people, and I want to make this clear, there has been some muttering. I shouldn't even say some people. I don't know how many people it is. But I always feel like if it's one person, it's like a cockroach, you know? If you see one, that means there's more in the walls. That we should start having guests again. We should have guests on the show. We need guests. You know, whoever's saying that obviously is tired of hearing from Amber and myself and is more interested in hearing from other people. And I get it. Because not having Jamie and Joe here lessens the chances of the ability that I have or that Amber has to call people out on absurd statements, ignorant statements, or general silliness. Joe and Jamie have a marked proclivity to say things at times that are disputable. And when it's just Amber and myself, chances are lessened, not 100%, but lessened that that's going to happen. And that's sort of an integral part of the show. It's always been an integral part of the show of like, wait, what did you say? What are you talking about? You're making no sense. And that's much more difficult when it's just Amber and myself, because Amber is far less likely than the rest of us to say anything that is absurd or that doesn't make sense. And I am far less likely than the rest of us to say anything. Well, I guess that's not true. I say extremely absurd things all the time. It's just that Amber is a much more accepting person than I am a lot of the time, so she lets things slide. So that element of conflict perhaps at times is missing in a way that it used to be present when other people were here. And of course, we haven't had guests in years, just because when you're doing a show for going on 11, starting our 12th year of doing the show tends to evolve. And, early on, we had a producer who was really into his duties and was responsible for booking guests. I guess he wasn't that into his duties. Jamie was never that into the producing side of producing. But he did do a good job at times of getting other people to come on the show. But then that kind of became less of a thing and seemed less important. And also we talked about it and sometimes enjoyed just talking to each other more, So anyway, I don't know that we will book guests. I don't know when or if Joe or Jamie will be back. I don't know how many more of these I will do by myself. But hopefully Amber will be back so that it'll at least be the two of us. And I will say, just as there is a cockroach coming out of the wall and going, you guys should have guests, there's also a cockroach coming out in our defense and saying, no, don't. And I use the word cockroach as a term of endearment, or because it's a metaphor, or I don't know. I'm not saying people are cockroaches. That would be obnoxious, and I don't mean it as a slight. Just in the sense that cockroaches are indicative of other cockroaches. But the point is, there are people saying, no, we don't want guests. We're okay with things the way they are. And ultimately, I always come back to, unfortunately, it's our show. So tonight, it's just me drinking my Grande Black Eye and getting through the entire Black Eye the way that Shane McGowan would go through an entire bottle of whiskey. And by the way, that probably was not a good idea for him, because I don't know if you saw some of the footage of him later on, but he was not thriving. Incredibly talented, but he seemed to be he seemed to have a couple of loose screws. Hi folks, we're Loose Screws. Welcome to our show. Could we have a suggestion of a profession, an accent, and a time of day? It's an old improv form. So anyway, I get where people are coming from on both sides of that disagreement. It's not going to change anything, but just know that I understand. And like I said, who knows? Joe and Jamie may come back, and then everything will be back to normal. So as we discussed last week, or last episode, this week was my birthday, which I did not particularly celebrate on the day. I got some calls, I spoke to some people, but I had class that night, so I couldn't really do anything and haven't been doing anything. Anyway, it was just weird. I did go out at the end of the night and went to the local ice cream factory or whatever it's called and got some really delicious brownie chip or something, peanut butter brownie chip. It was very good. And it was this weird thing where the guy behind the counter was like, let me know if you want to try any of them. And I was like, can I try the peanut butter brownie chip? And I did. And I guess I should have exploited that and tried a bunch of them. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. They want you to do that, right? But I felt guilty. I was like, I gotta get the one I tried. I gotta go with, I mean, it is good. I want to try some of the other ones, but Not necessarily, I'm not into the rose hip ice cream, but maybe the mint chip or something. So anyway, I got that ice cream, and then he was like, he goes, "Do you want any toppings?" And they have, they have a million toppings. He goes, "Do you want any toppings?" I said, "No." And he goes, "They're free today." And I felt again like I had locked myself into the decision of not getting toppings. I couldn't then turn around and say, "Oh, they're free? Give me all of them." So I did not get any toppings. It was fine. It wasn't the best birthday I've ever had. It's hard to remember birthdays, I think. Like, if you think about it, how many of them really stand... Like, they're such a big deal, but then how many of them really stand out in your mind, ultimately? I can think of... Well, my 8th birthday stands out in my mind only because I was not allowed to celebrate it that year. Not because we became Jehovah's Witnesses or anything, but just because I had done something and gotten in trouble... And that was my punishment, was that I would not get a birthday that year. And I still smarts. Many, many years later, over 20 years later, my 8th birthday, losing my 8th birthday, still smarts. One of these years, maybe I will have my 8th birthday party, and that would be fun. It would be, awkward conversations with a bunch of people I don't know. So it would just be like any other birthday. I remember my 30th birthday because that was the night of my UCB class level 2 performance. So I had just started taking classes with UCB. I had been working as an improviser, touring the country for 4 years at that point. But UCB had come to town, and I really loved what they did and had just started learning how to do what they did. And it was so... I still remember we were at a place on 17th Street between 5th and 6th called Solo Arts. It was up on the 5th floor of a walk-up. Or no, there was an elevator there, but the elevator, I think, rarely worked properly. So you had to walk up to the 5th floor. And it was just very exciting to be doing this class performance. And the teacher got up before the show. The teacher was a woman by the name of Amy Poehler, and said, I still remember how, shouting at the audience, "All right, everybody, grab your cocks and drop your socks. It's time for..." And like, it still had that feeling of like, oh my God, this is so exciting that we're doing this, which has subsided over the years. I wonder if I ever get to improvise again, I will feel that excitement again. I bet I will. It'll be super, super exciting to be doing it on stage in front of people. Like I said, if that ever happens. And then we went to the Old Town Tavern. This was my 30th birthday. We went to the Old Town Tavern, which was a bar on 6th Avenue. And that was fun because the Old Town Tavern had a dumbwaiter in it. And if you don't know what a dumbwaiter is, you probably do. I'm guessing you know what a dumbwaiter is. But a dumbwaiter is almost like a tiny elevator that goes from one floor to the next. So it goes from the kitchen downstairs upstairs to get food from the kitchen right up to the service stations upstairs. So they got me, the woman I was dating at the time got me a slice of birthday cake, and it came up in the dumbwaiter with a candle on it, and the door of the dumbwaiter. I think the dumbwaiter is always operated, I could be wrong about this, but I think at least in this case it was operated by rope. Like you had to pull the rope to get the thing to go up to the next floor. It wasn't like an elevator where it was hydraulic or electric or whatever elevators are. But the door of the dumbwaiter opened, and there was a slice of cake with a candle in it, and everybody sang happy birthday. So that's That was my 30th. Those are kind of the only ones I really remember. My 50th, I guess I remember because I headlined the Improv thanks to Jamie. And that was fun. But other than that, like, as big as they seem at the time, it doesn't seem like they're imprinted in my, at least for me, in my memory. So, we talked last week about how maybe I should have a party, and I did. I set up a whole thing for tomorrow afternoon, sent out invitations to people and so forth, that I was going to have a cookout down by the pool in my building. And this was exciting because I was going to be able to see some people I haven't seen in a while and get a bunch of people to come over and just sort of, do something that I haven't done in a year and a half. And I was excited about that. Until yesterday, I found out that they're re-implementing the mask mandate here in Los Angeles County. They're not really implementing it until midnight on Saturday. But I feel like, who the fuck knows what's going on with that stuff? So I immediately emailed everybody and said, never mind, forget it, don't come, because I just don't want to make people uncomfortable. I'm sure that everybody who was coming was vaccinated, and the mask mandate is not to protect vaccinated people, but here we are in this weird time, this weird state of confusion. And I did not want to make anybody uncomfortable. I don't know. I think it was the right decision. It is crazy. It is insane that Los Angeles County, the whole thing is crazy. The whole country is crazy right now that so many people are refusing to get vaccinated. There's so many things about it. It just doesn't make sense to me in the first place, because whatever they say, 99.5% of the people that are hospitalized and that are dying are unvaccinated. Like, that seems like proof to me that vaccines work and not getting vaccinated doesn't work. But yet people are like, well, I heard that the vaccine makes you sicker. I haven't heard of anybody dying from the vaccine. Maybe you have. I have not. I was thinking about, whatever. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, what if I said to you, look, we are going to play Russian roulette. You and I are going to play a game of Russian roulette. You know how that works. It's when you put one bullet in a gun that has 6 chambers. You spin the I don't know guns. I don't know what the things are called, but you've all seen it. You spin it, and then you pull. We all remember what was the Vietnam movie with De Niro and Christopher Walken, The Deer Hunter, where he becomes this incredibly good, lucky Russian roulette player and wins lots of money and loses his mind. But here's the thing about the game of Russian roulette that you and I are going to play. I'm going to use 2 guns, okay? 2 revolvers. I'm calling them revolvers because I'm assuming the fact that you can spin the thing that holds the bullets means that thing revolves, and that's why they're called revolvers. I could be wrong about that, but who knows? Why? This is not we're not sponsored by the NRA. It's okay for me to get those things wrong. So I'm going to use 2 guns. Each of them has 6 chambers for bullets. I'm going to use 1 bullet. I'm going to put 1 bullet in this gun and put it down on the table. And then I'm going to put this gun down on the table with no bullets in it. Okay, so you know which gun has no bullets and which gun has 1 bullet. We're going to play Russian roulette. And it's up to you. You get to decide which gun you use. Are you going to use the gun with no bullets? Or are you going to use the gun that you know has 1 bullet in it? You might still win with that gun. You might not shoot yourself in the head, but you might. You won't know until you pull the trigger. With the other gun, you know before you pull the trigger and you know after you pull the trigger. There's no bullets in that gun. You will not die from this game of Russian roulette. The other gun, you have a pretty good chance of living, but it's not 100%. It's definitely not 100%. It's like it's less than 100%. So it's up to you which gun you want to use. And half the people in this country right now would pick up the gun with the bullet in it and say, well, I heard it's actually more dangerous to use the one without bullets. You heard that? Why did you hear that? Who told you that? I read it on Facebook. Somebody said it's bad. You could the way the air is ejected from the gun with no bullets can be dangerous. More dangerous than the bullet. That seems impossible to me. It seems to me that forced air from a gun that's not loaded is not nearly as dangerous as a bullet. No, that's what I heard. That's what they're saying. Who's they? Sources I trust. It's fucking crazy. And very frustrating. And of course, the other part of that that's so frustrating is that everybody keeps saying, please don't mock these people. Don't make fun of them. Don't criticize them. Don't speak harshly to them because of their decision. Understand that they really believe this is the right decision. Have compassion for them. Feel for them. Let them feel the way they feel without being mocked for it. Understand them. And then try to say, well, the fact is this. Really? Is that going to work? And really, I'm not supposed to go, you fucking idiot. Why would you use that gun when you know this gun is empty? You fucking moron. The hell is wrong with you? And that's not even a good analogy, because the other part of that is that these people are putting other people at risk by not getting vaccinated. That they're not just risking their own lives, they are risking people who they come into contact with. It's very frustrating that this has become so politicized, that we're seeing so much politicization is the word I would use. Politicization of this decision. Politicization is one of those words that people are using all the time now, and nobody can properly say it. Everybody's saying, watch, the next time you see somebody try to use the word politicization, they'll say politicization. Politicization, which is not the word. It's too hard for people to say politicization. So everybody's starting to say politicization. And of course that means that within a few years it will be acceptable. The word will become politicization. I don't understand how that works. Because so many people do it wrong, we have to adapt to them. Politicization. But watch out for politicization. You'll hear it all the time from the pundits. Pundits. You know those people who used to be called pundits that everybody now calls pundits? Because for some reason the word pundit is too difficult and people say pundit. These motherfuckers. Anyway. Of course, we all know this. The problem is that the longer this thing with COVID stays alive, the more likely it is to mutate and start causing difficulties for people that are vaccinated. I mean, that's not the only difficulty. It's killing people. It's literally killing people who are making bad decisions, but also people who are just affected by those people. People whose immune systems don't work as well. It's all fucking politicization. Politicization. I also love that all this stuff is coming out now, that everybody around Trump knew what a fucking maniac he was from the beginning. And nobody did it. He's an incredible guy. The fact that he was able to, it was clear to everybody. I mean, it was clear to me and probably to you from before the time he got elected that he was a maniac, that he was a psychopath, that he didn't care about anybody, that he would push his own family off a cliff to save his own life. But it's now clear that everybody around him was very aware of that and incapable of acting on it in any way. That was just, it's how he is. He's like that. Let's bring Ivanka into the room to calm him down because he's so enraged all the time and out of control. Now, the other part of that is the story about Ivanka being brought into the room to calm him down is a story that came out from Ivanka, who is clearly doing the best she can to save her reputation. Good luck. But all these stories this week about Mark Milley and the coup and Milley comparing him to Hitler and whatever. And I mean, the one that really has stuck out to me in kind of a crazy way is the whole story about Mike Pence on January 6th, right? That Mike Pence is in the Capitol. He's trying to do the ceremonial job that he can't not do this. Like, it's not like he can go, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just keep Trump as president. He can't do that. And Trump is calling him a pussy for not doing that. So Pence is at the Capitol. The Capitol gets invaded by tourists who are just out for a stroll. Pence's Secret Service men say, we need to get you out of here. You know, get in the car and let's go. And Pence won't do it. And what's so interesting about that is, you know, on the one hand, there's the aspect of the story that's like Pence felt that if he could not be seen, you know, his caravan of 20 cars could not be seen driving away from the Capitol because then the rioters would feel like they had won and they wouldn't be able to certify the election because he wouldn't be there anymore. So that's like one version of that story, is that he doesn't want to get into the car because he doesn't want to, you know, he doesn't want to be seen running away with his tail between his legs, which, you know, I get that. I buy that. But there's another version of that story, which is Pence did not want to get into that car. I guess there's one version where he said there's two other versions of the other version. One is he's talking to the head of his security detail and he goes, look, I trust you, but I'm afraid that if I tell the driver not to drive away, he's still going to drive away. So that's another version, is that they just want him to get into this armored car and he won't do it because he's afraid that if he gets into the car, he won't have control of the car and the car will drive away. And then the second version of the second version is he doesn't know what these fucking people are capable of. These are the people responsible for his security, and he's not sure if they're in on it with Trump and they're going to get him out of there so Trump can take over and stay president. Like, whoa, how far does that go? I mean, is there? I don't know this, but of course, if it was like a novel, there would be a part of Mike Pence that was going, are they going to take me somewhere and kill me and dump me on the side of the road so that I can't certify this election? Crazy. So anyway, crazy week for news. And, you know, these are just a few excerpts that came out from these books. The books are going to come out. There'll be more stuff in there. And shit like this, I mean, we've already talked about this, but shit like this is just going to keep coming out and keep coming out and keep coming out about what a lunatic this guy was the entire time he was in the White House. And he could win again. We'll see. It's entirely possible. I mean, the fact that the way, what's his name, Michael Wolff, who is a bit of a nut job himself, it seems, but the way he makes it sound is that when the election was over and Biden was declared the winner, everybody in Trump's orbit was like, that's it, it's done, we're done. Trump is no longer the president, except for Rudy Giuliani was the only one who would tell Trump what he wanted to hear, and Trump would listen to him, and they would get each other riled up. And then it started to spread again. And they all went along with it. And now look where the fuck we are. Fun. Fun, fun, fun. And also, it just cracks me up that Michael Wolff is just openly saying, like, yeah, Giuliani was just drunk all the time. He just was drunk. His life hasn't worked out the way he wanted it to. He thought he was going to be president and Trump would be helping him. And meanwhile, Trump is president and he's helping Trump, so he's just drunk all the time. And that's the guy who has kept Trump viable and is working very hard to tear down democracy. I'm thinking of a great Russian roulette scene just because I was talking about it so much. There's a scene in the movie The Way of the Gun, which I don't really remember the movie that well. I remember being excited to see it, but then like being not that excited about it after I saw it. But there is a great Russian roulette scene in that movie where there's a guy. He's just a hired, bad guy, played by the great Jeffrey Lewis, who you would definitely recognize him if you saw him. He's one of those guys who was in every TV show from starting in the, I don't know when, probably the early 70s, maybe even the late 60s, early 70s, through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, and he died a few years ago. But he was just in fucking everything, So you would definitely recognize him. And there's just a scene where he has a bunch of revolvers. I'm going to call them revolvers because I don't know what I'm talking about. He has revolvers on the table in front of him, and he has clearly loaded a bullet into each of the revolvers. And he puts them all in a sack. He has like 5 or 6 of them. And he puts them all in a sack, and he kind of spins the sack and reaches in and pulls out one of the revolvers. He's playing a bunch of rounds of Russian roulette with different guns. So once he uses one gun, he goes on to the next gun. And he reaches in, he pulls out the first one, puts it to his head. And there's a funny detail in the movie where he puts his hand on the other side of his head, like if he does shoot himself in the head, he's going to kind of try to keep it from going on the walls. That's just a fun. I love little details like that. Like he's being polite at the same time he's being completely insane. And he pulls the gun out, puts it to his head, and the phone starts ringing. And it's just ringing and ringing, and he kind of looks at the phone, but then he pulls the trigger on the gun, and the gun doesn't, the gun click, no, nothing happens. Phone's still ringing, reaches in, pulls out another gun, puts it to his head, puts his hand on the other side of his face because you don't want to get brains on the wall. Phone's still ringing. He looks at the phone. He, I don't know, probably squares his shoulders or something. But then finally he answers the phone, and that gets us further into the movie. And it's just such a great little character moment for that character. Like, this is a guy with nothing to lose. I don't know. It's just a little bits like that are some of my favorite things in movies, where you go, oh, this is defining who this character is, without somebody going, oh, be careful of this guy, he's got nothing to lose. You just see it, That's Christopher McQuarrie wrote that movie, I think, the guy who wrote Usual Suspects and directed a bunch of the I think he directed that. He's directed a bunch of the Mission Impossible movies too. Anyway, Russian roulette. Well, I'm getting to the bottom of this coffee, and if anybody's still listening, good for you. Thanks for hanging in. Did find out this afternoon that Biz Markie died at the age of 57, which is young. Very young. I guess it was complications from diabetes. And I have such specific memories. I mean, I was talking about how I got out of college, and it was the following year that so June after that, I started doing improv, and September after that, I started teaching, my first year of teaching, and that was 1989. And that was the year that Biz had his big hit, right? What was it called? Just a Friend. I was going to say You Got What I Need, but I knew that wasn't the name of it. But he had his big hit, Just a Friend, in 89. And like I said, I was teaching in a school. The school was out of control to begin with. And I was not a good teacher. I was not a teacher. I was just a person who kind of walked in off the street and was trying to get things done. Had no idea what I was doing. So I had no control over my classes. I couldn't get them to focus or pay attention. I would be in class and kids would just be doing whatever the fuck they wanted to while I was trying to teach the class. I was trying to teach junior high school math. That was my first year of teaching, was math. And anyway, because of the way that the beat on that song was, and because of the desks that these kids had, they could replicate the beat of Just a Friend with, let me see if I can, the desks were those ones with like the metal on the bottom and then the sort of fake wood top that opens up. So there's like a hollow space in the middle. So they're basically built like drums, and you can get a certain sound from the metal at the bottom and a different sound from the whatever it was. It's not wood. I guess it's plastic, but fake wood top of the desk. So every once in a while, while I was teaching math, some kid would just start the beat from that song, and the whole class would join in and sing the chorus. You got what I need. You say she's just a friend. And it just was, as a teacher, as a whatever I was, 22-year-old teacher, I was frustrated and felt like, what the fuck? Why won't these kids pay attention to me? Why won't they listen to me? But as a human being, it was pretty beautiful to see 30 eighth graders singing that song together while one kid, played the drums. You guys know the beat I'm talking about. Go listen to it. Biz Markie. Rest in peace. This has been The Long Shot. We'll see you next time.
It's hard to think about this world. It's hard to clot the wobbling. It's hard to keep the cursing out, to put a stop to the sobbing. I'm trying to get you less completely.